What is up, Fin fans? We were trying something new, and it took us a hot minute to set it up so it looks good for you guys. But yeah, let us know that you could see us, you could hear us, all that good stuff. But yeah, we're trying to go through a different avenue to make things look better for you guys. But episode 5, right? 5? Episode 5. The starting lineup. Got 91 of you guys in here already. Hit that like button. Let's get a ton in here. A lot of you guys were waiting. One of you guys asked if I ran out to get pretzels. No, I have the pretzels here. They're right here. I always have pretzels with me. I don't have to worry about going out and getting pretzels. Oh man. What's up, guys? Shout out to my oldest daughter, just graduated NC State with 2 degrees. Jeez Louise. Congrats to her. You can't hear reason. See, that's why I needed to know these things. Maybe I fixed it.
Testing.
I did what you said and clicked the like, but the number went down. Yeah, we're going to talk about Wilson. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things today. But first you heard him? Okay, good. We'll jump.
So did my pretzel thing not land after all of that? the Seinfeld reference, like, dang. All right. Anyways,
we'll start with this one here, and we're going to essentially recap the draft and talk about our thoughts on the draft. And I liked it. I thought it was a solid draft. I know there's people out there that didn't like it. Someone gave us like a D- grade, which is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. What did you think of it, Reason?
I think I gave it I think I gave between the draft and the UDFA signings, I think I gave it a B overall. I mean, let's be honest, right? When we did our mock draft, when we said who's going to go at 38, at 13, I said Kenneth Grant. When we said who are going to go at 48, you said Jonas Savai and I didn't think he'd going to be there. And we both ended up being right. He wasn't going to be there.
No, trade up.
And we did get him. Honestly, dude, I like it. I know, you know what? I think the problem is it's not sexy.
Yeah.
Trenches aren't sexy to people, but what kills me is so many people have been banging the table for us to upgrade the trenches. And really, I know you've done it, right? The second wave of free agency targets. I'm pretty sure you've done it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you not look at that defensive tackle market and say, am I really about to put Hankins on this list? You know what I mean? Like, it's slim pickings.
Yeah.
You know, and a little birdie, from what I understand, that's why they traded back from 116 was because of that run at defensive tackle with Deion Walker, CJ West, and Ty Robinson was the other one that went there right before them.
Yeah, I wanted him. And of course he went to the Eagles. I wanted him so bad.
Obviously, right? But honestly, man, dude, Jordan Phillips, I don't know, man. It's everyone just sets their expectations. I think mock drafts and mock draft simulators, Dougley, have ruined it because now you have to go in a certain specific area in the draft that everyone's mock draft simulator told them to. And if you don't, well, it's bad value or whatever the case may be and it's just ruined expectations for everyone, right? So
yeah, everyone, and it's funny because whenever you put up a mock or whenever you do it, everyone's like, hey, so-and-so's not going to be there at that pick, or, there's no way you're going to be able to grab so-and-so. And, we all have, like you said, these preconceived notions that they're reaches. Like people think Kenneth Grant was a reach. People think we shouldn't have traded up for Jonah, which...
Yeah,
the Patriots are pissed that we took Jonah. They were fighting for him, and we moved and the other thing is, from what I heard, is we wanted to trade down in the first, and I think we were talking to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh was like, "Yeah, we want to move up to 13. We want Kenneth Grant," and the Dolphins were like, "No," and then they stayed and took Kenneth Grant, and they took Harmon. It's like. Yeah. It went the way it went, and the first 3 picks to me, obviously trading out of 4 was kind of head scratching for me, but like you said, once you saw the DT start to run and we picked up a 3rd, like obviously that team was very desperate to jump in. Yeah, I'm happy with it. I will say the only picks I was like, they could have done better was the safety and corner picks
I agree.
in the
I agree
fifth.
wholeheartedly. And I'll give my thoughts on that in a sec. But okay, for Kenneth Grant, perfect example. Isn't that a perfect example? Oh, in my mock draft simulator, I could have got him in the 20s or I could have got him in the second round. And then what is Chris? You said what you said about Pittsburgh,
Yeah,
right? Walter Nolan went to Arizona a couple picks later. So
he would
Kenneth
not have
Grant,
been. Yeah, he wouldn't
no,
have
and
been
then
there.
Greer said, and you know what? The one thing we could talk about Greer is at least you can say the guy doesn't lie very often when he sits up there in front of us and insulting our intelligence. And he told us flat out that teams, and that's probably where Pittsburgh fell into, that teams were calling him saying that's a good pick, blah 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 blah. And then with Savai Naya, everyone thinks, oh, well, I got him on my mock draft in 48, so he's going to be there. But it doesn't work like that, like we are just discussing with the New England stuff that came out right now. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Those are the only picks that I really was down on. Marshall, I felt if you're going to bet on, you know, the athleticism,
Mm,
go get me Zoff Frazier from UTSA. You
mm-hmm.
know, that's where Tariq Woolen went. So don't give me the competition thing. And at least he's got ball production over the last 2 years. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Like, and then with Trader, again, I thought there were better options. And for both picks, Dougley, I think there were better options to double dip at guard if
yeah,
you wanted to than those players too.
yeah.
So
100%. I think that was a Weaver pick. I think they got to that point and they kind of just looked at Weaver and was like, "Who do you want?" And we'll just take them. Because they're not bad necessarily. The safety's a little slow, but they're not bad. They're just there was better options. Like some
yeah,
people, like Kobe Bryant. Didn't Kobe Bryant go undrafted? Do you know
yeah,
why he went undrafted? That's interesting to me. Some guys went
yeah. I was shocked.
undrafted.
Yeah, like the tight end we got, Jalen Connors. Count your days, Julian Hill. Like same thing with Izakama, Andrew Armstrong. I'm shocked he went
Yeah,
undrafted. You know what I
I think
mean?
yeah, I
Because
think
yeah,
Izukama's. I think he's on the out. I'll be surprised if he makes it to training camp. To be honest with you, I
so will
think
I. And even Tajay Washington, like Andrew Armstrong's very good. Like the 2 days before the draft, when I did my show with Neil, I said, "Yo, give me a deep sleeper," and that's who he named. So we'll
P-
see. I thought that guy would have gone in the fifth or sixth.
yeah, PFF had him I think ranked 196.
I'm
So
shocked. I'm
yeah,
shocked.
I think he was
Yeah,
like the
that
29th best wide receiver they had, and I'm not high
dude.
on PFF.
Neither am I. I like more like the analytics. The grades are like they're
Oh
just so
yeah, yeah.
subjective. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
give me the
you
stats
know,
and give me the stuff that's like legit.
yeah,
You could take your
yeah.
grades and you can.
Now I read the grades every week for my viewers, but it's for their sake. I really could care less.
Mhm.
I just like the analytics. That's where I like the time to throw and all that stuff.
So speaking of the draft, biggest surprise. I think obviously the biggest surprise is Shador going down to the fifth round. I honestly, me and you, I don't think we're very high on Shador, and I don't think we had discussions on this channel multiple times saying, "Oh, he'll be there at 13."
Yeah,
We
yeah,
thought he'd go to the Steelers at 21, and
yeah. And then we don't
um,
want
but the
how
fifth round.
Bro, how bad is it when the Steelers who had like AB and Le'Veon Bell and like got the lid on it, like, yeah, now we're good.
Yeah, they're like, we're
You
not
know,
doing this anymore.
like they draft Kenny Pickett in the first round a couple years ago, and Shador's better than Kenny Pickett. Like, okay, so here's the thing. I still respect and hold the pocket quarterback in a high regard. I'm
Yeah.
not one of these people. I don't think it's ever going to go away. And especially come the playoff times, right? When you got to beat people for instructure.
Mm-hmm.
So I had him as my QB3, but with the caveat that if Tyler Shuck was younger and didn't have the injury history, I was saying I would choose him before Sanders. And sure enough, what happened? And then the other thing I said is, hey, in a weak quarterback class, what do? You bet on traits and upside. And I said, I wouldn't be surprised if a team takes Jalen Milroe before Shador too. And sure enough, what happened? Jalen Milroe. Now, where I do draw the line for Shador is Dylan Gabriel. That's ludicrous. And dude, come on. Like,
Yeah.
but you know what it feels like? It feels like the owner stepped in, dude. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like the coaching staff are like, okay, we're not going with Shador. Let's take Dylan Gabriel here in the third. And then the owner finally stepped in and said, okay, no one's taking him. Pull the trigger. And now, like, someone posed this question on my channel. What are you going to do if you have to cut Dylan Gabriel? Because look at their roster right now, right? They
5
got
quarterbacks.
and Dylan Gabriel's not very good, bro.
You got Deshaun Watson, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, Shador Sanders, and who's number 5? Kenny Pickett, right?
Yeah, Kenny Pickett. And they traded for Kenny Pickett. They
So yeah,
traded for
Dylan
Kenny
Gabriel's the odd man out on that one. And then you still have 4.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Oh
Like,
God.
and I don't think Dylan Gabriel's good. Like, I'll be honest with you. I think, like Kyle McCord was in my QB6, and then Quinn Ewers in my QB7. So I think Gabriel was like my QB like 11 or 12. I'm not a fan.
No.
Like, okay, here's the thing. Shador is Tua light with no superpowers.
Okay.
Gabriel is like Shador light. So he's like the homeless version of Tua. So why do I want that, right? And everyone's like, oh, he's left-handed. Like, that matters. You know what I mean? Like, I don't – just because Tua is left-handed, please, right? So, and how long has Dylan Gabriel been in college for? Wasn't he in college for like 12 years or something like that? That guy's been around forever. Bro, I remember he was at UCF.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, oh, this left-handed kid out of UCF. And I watched him, and I remember everyone's like, oh, Hawaii, no Tua. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And Tua was in college for how long and broke his hip and got drafted in the top 5. This guy's been in college for over a decade. And, where does he go, right? So I don't know if you watched Dylan Gabriel, but I'm just not a fan at all.
There was other guys that were somewhat surprises to other people, but you were telling me things and we were having discussion like Mike Green falling, and I thought Walter Nolan would have fell further. But he was probably, if he didn't have the off the field stuff and the attitude problem, he probably would have been top 10.
And I think, what I think though? I think the difference is with Mike Green, it's like, so basically what I've heard with the Mike Green thing is like, okay, he had the allegation, the SA allegation in a high school, but they thought it was like an ex-girlfriend, like ex-lover quarrel type thing. It's like trying to get him. But then when he got to Virginia Tech on the no nonsense, hey, you want anything, you're gone. And when that happened, apparently, it was, the rapture. You know what I mean? You can put the play letter game with that, what I just said, right? So, apparently like there's far more evidence that the Virginia Tech one is, not good. But Walter Nolan, I think it's because it's more personal, right? It's more like personal habits and who you are as a person. Whereas there's potential like, and bro, the Ravens, like really, right after the Justin Tucker stuff. Like,
that's
seriously?
why when he got drafted there, I was like, of course.
All the places.
Of course.
Obviously. And
Ray Lewis.
Yeah. Like... Bro, I used to play in a fantasy league with a guy, and he's a Ravens fan, and his fantasy name was Ray Lewis's bloodstained shirt, and it was a picture of you remember the bloody shirt? It was a picture of the bloody shirt, bro. Like, dude. God. And what's crazy? Like, if you talk to Neil about it, dude, that Tucker stuff was known like everywhere. Like, his wife had already like dealt with it and got over it a couple years ago. Like, that's how long this stuff's been going on. Like, jeez. Yeah, when you're winning, like it's just
just put it on the rug. And then you have Will Johnson falling and falling. You knew that, like, again, we knew he was going to fall, but I didn't think he would fall to that extent. I guess people were really not liking the injuries that he had because he fell. Like, the Dolphins had multiple opportunities to grab him if they wanted to.
Yeah, he and I was so shocked how far Jalen Noel fell from Iowa State. But dude, I don't know if you saw, we had the 3rd most negative tweets about the draft from a fan base. The Texans were number 2, and they drafted Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. Think about that, bro. With Nico Collins and what they got over there. What was the other receiver? Didn't they add another receiver over there?
I think so.
Stephon Diggs left, right?
Yeah, he's with the Patriots now.
Yeah, and they added someone else. I'm pretty sure. But anyways, point of the matter is, like, go look at the receiving core. They look like stacked, dude. That was pretty shocked that Noel fell. I feel like teams are going to pay for that.
Yeah.
Ollie Gordon was shocking, too.
I was about to say, how about the fact that the Packers took a wide receiver for the first time since 2002?
Bro, and twice, eh? Did you see who they doubled up on?
Aaron Rodgers is pissed.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, come on.
But that's Savion, man. Like, that's Debo 2.0 a little bit there when you look at his profile, man. Like,
Packers are going to be dangerous.
Let me
Speaking,
ask you this: hold on?
yeah,
Did Loveland going in front of Warren shock you? Because I tried to warn Dolphin fans on Twitter.
if I wasn't talking to you, like if we weren't friends like how we are, it would have. But the fact that, you know, we talk as much as we do, I was like, I started like coming to the realization that, you know, people really like, and I think it's because of his blocking ability and, you know, where he went, you know, so.
Yeah. And it's closest thing to Bowers in the draft, right?
And then you saw the Colts war room when they were like, when they got their guy. Because everyone thought they'd have to trade up in front of the Dolphins or trade with the Dolphins for some reason. But no, Dolphins stayed pat and they got their guy. Speaking of corner, we have a corner issue that we have to address. Now, I made a whole video. I think today I made the whole video kind of talking about Ramsay. You know, where could he land? What could the Dolphins get? And it's a sticky situation because if the Dolphins do trade Ramsay and don't touch his money, and you know we'll talk about it because there's some teams that they might have to touch or help. 5.916 million. We're at 17.279, so we would have 23.195. What teams do you see potentially trying to grab Ramsay?
I think the Rams chatter is real.
Mm-hmm.
I think Raheem Morris and the Falcons at the right price would be all over that as well. AFC. AFC is a little tougher for me. I don't know why. Maybe because subconsciously I would want to get him to the NFC.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure there's a contender out there in the AFC who's always the Raiders could always use a corner right now with what they're building. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I think this isn't going to happen until after June 1st. And you know, I think the Falcons make the most sense because of Raheem Morris. But the problem with all these teams is we're probably going to have to eat so much money.
That's one of the things I heard about the Rams is that, you know, they want to bring him back, but the Dolphins might have to take some of his cap hit to make that trade facilitated. Do you think the Dolphins would help Ramsay out and not send him to Green Bay, or do you think they really don't care and send him to wherever they can get something for him?
Are you speaking of a Jair Alexander 1-for-1?
Kind of, yeah.
I would. You know, I know he's injured and like in and out of the lineup a little bit, but he's better than what we have. You know, like even if he gives us, hey, we learned to love Teron Armstead because he's better than what we had, even if he gave us 12 or 13 games. What do you want, Jair Alexander for 12 or 13 games or Storm Duck for a full 17? You know, like you got to ask yourself that question, and then hopefully he can get healthy or you can get the miracle. Like, what would you do if you traded for Jair? Would you tell him, hey, listen, I'm not giving you new money? Because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, because he needs a new contract.
So would you tell him, hey, I'm not giving you new money because I want to see if you can stay healthy? Like, what do you do there?
I'd probably, if anything, do the special that they do where, you know, they restructure his contract, have that out after 1 year, make him feel comfortable that he got some type of, you know, security. But that one's interesting to me because, you know, you bring in Jair, and I understand like he has injury history, but then you also can go out and get like a Rasul Douglas, and then all of a sudden you're kind of okay at corner. You know, you have your D-line do better than they did last year, 27th in sacks, and all of a sudden you don't really have to worry about your secondary that much if you're getting all that pressure you can get on the front. You brought up the Raiders too, and we've talked about this guy, Michael Mayer, do a 1-for-1 for him as well. Doesn't really help us in the aspect of we need a corner now that we lost a corner, but it's a good 1-for-1. And again, that's where I'm torn because you look at Ramsay and you're like, do you want to help him out and not send him to like Cleveland? You know, because I know Newsome, there's a possibility of trading for him, like not send him there. Because you go to Cleveland, you go to the Jets to die as an NFL player. Like it is what it is. Do you do that? Do you like help him out and send him to Tampa Bay, who needs safety help, and he could transition to safety and really help him there? Or do you say, screw it, man, you don't want to be here, we're going to send you wherever we can send you?
I think we're in a position where we got to get the best return possible. And like to your point earlier about and what we were talking about like the Rams and teams wanting us to pay a majority of that salary, I would tell them, okay, that's fine. Guess what? It's gone from a 4th round pick to a 2nd round pick.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to be taking up and wasting that much cap space and I'm not getting a player in return, okay, then I want a higher draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
See, you know what? Now with the players that are available at corner, the issue we're running into is there's a bunch of 2s and so few 1s.
Yeah.
Jair Alexander and Asante Samuel are probably like the only clearing away number 1s. And then you ask yourself, is Asante Samuel physical enough for what they want on the boundary? Like Greg Newsome, he got benched last year. You probably want him in a 2 role right now. Jalen Watson, who's apparently on the market from the Chiefs, he's more of like a 2. You don't really want him as a 1 right now, right? Like the issue is, or like Amik Robertson from Detroit, he's a slot guy. See, this is where I think we're headed here. I don't think there's any 2 ways about it, especially with Ramsay leaving. I think Kohu's going to get more work on the boundary. And it's just like there's no way around it.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be shocked if they sign a slot guy and then trade for a boundary guy, or trade for the best slot guy available and then signed a boundary guy and then they push Kohu up. Like it feels like the inevitable is Kohu's going to get more work on the boundary.
Which we all saw how that worked because, oh, God. This question's interesting. Scotty asks, Ramsay doesn't have a not trade. Why are we saying it's up to him? I don't think we're really saying it's up to him. It's more of, it's kind of like the whole Calais Campbell situation last year where it's like we've done it before where we've cut players at a certain time so they have time to join a new team. Yeah. It's just something, front offices do to not be pieces of crap, essentially. We'll help you out, but it comes to a point where it's like, we're done helping you out. And
well, the interesting part too is like, who's he represented by? Athletes First. And they have look at all the issues Athletes First have given them with Tua's deal, Christian Wilkins. Like it hasn't gone well with Athletes First the last couple of years. So, I don't know how much they feel like they owe them. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And again, if he's gone, then it comes into the situation, will the Dolphins trade for a corner? Will they sign one? And not even just Jair or Newsome. There's a possibility, they picked up that extra 3rd. They can use that extra 3rd to go out and get whoever they want at corner. Yeah. Are you hearing any rumbles?
For, Doug. I don't think it's for a quarterback in next year's class. First of all, if it ain't evident to anyone yet, clearly these guys are operating like they're okay. And what did I tell you privately? And I've reported since what I heard from the combine. These guys are safer than what people think they are. That's what I heard coming out of that. And now we're watching them operate like that right in front of us. I think this 3rd round pick is not for a quarterback next year to trade up. I think it's, we're going to get an extra 4th and a comp pick. Let's use this as off Holland. Let's use this as a trade bait right now to go get that corner that you're talking about. But the problem is, bro, don't you feel like this trade would be easier to complete before free agency when these teams have a chance to subsidize this stuff? And they've known what kind of makes us irritated a little bit. They've known about this Ramsay thing since before free agency started.
Yeah. 100%. This isn't something new, and Greer even said that they've been in constant communication, and, it's not something new that just popped up. But the way they acted in free agents, the way they acted in general, this whole off season is, again, reiterating what you said is all of us think, they're on the hot seat. They're going to go out there. They're going to have to make moves. They have worked in the draft and they've worked in free agency. They're like, let's build a foundation again with young talent. And then next year we'll add the pieces to get where are you kidding me right now?
Deja vu, bro.
They're not going anywhere. And it just, oh my God, status quo isn't good enough. But, let's give Chris Greer the keys to another rebuild, because he was so good at that in 2020. Just adding.
Dude, the fact that, think about this, dude. I want you to really think about this. He's on his third head coach and he's never won a playoff game. Have you ever heard, bro? You're a Mets fan. This isn't the only sport you watch. Have you ever heard of a GM getting this kind of holy, like,
No.
3 head coaches and you've never won a playoff game?
It's he's got something. Whether it's the Flores situation or what,
exactly what it is.
There's something.
Oh, bro, this is what it is. Ross, I don't know if you've heard this. Ross is trying to get the Flores thing from federal to arbitration.
Oh God.
And if it gets to NFL arbitration, why does that matter? If it goes to federal, Greer can be subpoenaed.
Oh my.
All right. If it goes to arbitration, the NFL ain't going to subpoena guys because they don't want to open up those closets, right? They're just going to take everything at a face value, come to a conclusion, pay some hush money, and it goes away. Where a federal case could blow a little bit more. So maybe that's why maybe that is why they might have a little leeway too. I'm just saying, Greer specifically. Like, if we have a bad year and McDaniel's the only one that gets shown the curve, we know that's exactly
100%.
what the case is.
100%.
Because now we're getting to a 4th coach.
Yeah. Or they'll stash them away. Like the rumors are that they'll just, you're not the GM anymore. You're the assistant upstairs for whatever. Like they'll stash him so he can't talk.
That's what I heard when we were like 2-4 last year. That's what I started hearing rumblings of them shifting him to another position and Brandon Shore stepping in and keeping all the roles he currently has. Because I don't know if you've ever seen how many roles that guy has.
Oh yeah.
You know what he is, bro? He's our Omar Khan. And what did Omar Khan eventually happen in Pittsburgh? Became the GM. But you know what the thing is, dude? Here's the difference. AFC North teams like them and the Ravens, and you know what I mean? They have philosophies and foundations that are built organizationally for over 20 years. That's why they draft trenches really well. That's why their defenses can churn over and still always be good. That's why they always have the smash him ground and pound running games from Jerome Bettis all the way to when they just had Najee Harris. Same thing with the Ravens, right? When they won with Trent Dilfer, that defense was good, but who was running the rock? Jamal Lewis, baby. You know what I mean? And have they changed? Even with Lamar Jackson, when they had a committee where they were still
Derrick
Gus
Henry.
Edwards was still like fantasy worthy. You know what I mean? Like, because those philosophies and foundations are built and institutionalized in these organizations. They have identities in them. Had them for over 20 years. We're still searching for ours post Marino. And that's the truth, bro. That's the truth. And now I think we're in a philosophical shift with okay, look what's going on right now, Doug. Patrick Paul, Liam Eichenberg, they don't mix with what has started to take over since McDaniel came in here. Like, you look at how Aaron Brewer moves. You look at how James Daniels has a little bit of some movement skills, how Connor moved, how Teron moved. Austin Jackson was already here and how he moved, and he's looked like the best fit from the old cast of characters, right? Like, you can see, but we still draft Patrick Paul.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, and he can move a little bit, but you don't want him on an island. You know what I mean? He doesn't move like Teron, right? Like, you can see, and he doesn't move like Jonah. And you can see the shift is happening, right? So hopefully they win this year so we can find our identity, build how they're building the trenches on both sides now, build something philosophically that we can stand 10 toes on and be proud of, bro. Because, man, are they going to find an identity before me and you hit 50?
Bringing in Ollie Gordon too, that really is, that's an eye opener, because Ollie Gordon is that guy who's going to run you over. And McDaniel doesn't look at Achane. Look at Jalen Wright. Like, Jalen Wright, he'll hate you, but they're not Derrick Henry, Ollie Gordon, these big guys. So, but here's the
Can
big.
I ask you about something, Doug?
What's up?
I haven't talked to you. I don't think I've ever talked to you about this actually ever. This is the first time we're having this conversation. Does it bug? Because I know we live react to the games, but then we watch the game by ourselves later that night. Then we wait for the all 22 to come out Monday night. Then we watch it through. Then we chop it up and watch the plays again when we put it all together. We ended up watching this stuff like 4 or 5 times. Doesn't it bug you that people I know you've seen it on X, especially the people that are writing off Jalen Wright. Like, how many times did you see sweeps or outside zone runs to the right where it was blocked off? It was shut down. The defense flowed to that side. He put his feet in the ground, foot in the ground, planted, cut back, and he turned it into 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 yards, and it made no sense. Imagine, Doug, doesn't it get your giblets a little excited if these guys stay healthy?
Yes.
Hall, Daniels, Brewer, Savaianaya, and Austin Jackson. Dude, like, this could be a top 15 offensive line easily if they stay healthy, bro.
That is the biggest misconception of 2023 is that people think that the downfall of 2023 was mostly Tua, the Tennessee Titan game and the Ravens game, and Tua didn't throw this into. People completely forget that Tennessee Titan game, we lost Connor Williams, we lost Isaiah Wynn, we didn't have Teron Armstead. The downfall of 2023 was the offensive line crumbled, and there went our run game.
Win in the Eagles game.
Yep. And that's where people forget, a lot of people say, oh, we had such a good run game in 2023. Yeah, for about 10 games we did. Yeah. And then it disappeared because the offensive line disappeared. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, Tua, sorry, but you're going to have to throw it 40 times a game. And why do you think he led the league in passing yards? It's because those last 5 games, he's throwing and throwing and throwing and throwing and throwing. Like that Cowboys game, we got lucky that we were able to get in the position we were getting in to kick that field goal with the run.
Look how it started off with the Tyreek drop. Thank God for Waddle on the next play, bro. And I'll give you a good stat. I don't know if you knew this. I don't know if you ever threw it out on your channel or not. Did you know Raheem Mostert didn't have a single 100-yard plus rushing game after Isaiah Wynn went down? No one wants to talk about that, bro.
Nope. And he had what? 22 all-purpose touchdowns?
Yeah.
They just... it goes to the wayside. People forget that that's the main reason for the collapse in 2023. We had a 3-game lead. We beat Tennessee. We would have clinched.
It's over. Yeah, it's over.
Because we would have beat the Cowboys, and then we clinched the AFC East. Yeah. And then facing the Ravens would have been for the #1 seed.
We would have been looser. We wouldn't have been as tight, right? Because we would have already clinched up the AFC East. They would have been a little looser.
Oh, Chubb wouldn't have been in the end of the game, and a lot more injuries wouldn't have happened. Yeah. And then we would have sat our guys for Buffalo. Buffalo, do whatever you want. Sleep us. We don't care. We got the division in our pockets.
Yeah.
It would have been different.
And now here we are. Ramsay wants out. Teron's gone. Calais doesn't want anything to do with us anymore. And look at what a year and a half can do, bro.
Yep. What did Glenn say? Glenn with the 5 said, Judge already rules that Flores' case against Miami has to go to arbitration because of contract with the Dolphins that Flores signed.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
Well, come on, get it to arbitration so we can get off Chris Greer.
Let's move off of this, man. Yeah. Jeez Louise. Let's talk about a big thing since we're talking about Tua Tagovailoa. Let's talk about these backup quarterbacks. You got Quinn Ewers and you got Zach Wilson. I'm going to be reacting to Kurt Warner's Quinn Ewers breakdown because I haven't watched it.
Oh, he has one?
Yeah.
He has one?
So I suggest you do it as well. Cut it up.
I just watched the Gruden's camp. I don't know if you watched it.
Yo, Gruden's camp, he's so ridiculous.
He's great, eh?
The one thing that I noticed, and I got flack for this on X, is when Jackson Dart, I was like, good thing he is sitting a year. And people were like, why? Tua, because they all have to get their panties in a twist. Yeah. When he said, show me your cadence and and he just clapped. And he's like, all right, now show me, on 2. And he just clapped again.
Purple? When he said purple?
Yeah, he was like, so what is like to try to draw him off sides? He was like,
yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, he's like, that's it? Like, you got to. So, like, there is some things that Jackson Dart is that, Brian Dable's the perfect guy to bring him in. But there are some things that he's going to have to sit. You got Winston and you got Wilson. Jackson, sit for a year. Don't rush the kid out. Do what you did to Eli. Have Kurt Warner out there. You let Eli sit, and you. But I also made the excuse. I also made a saying, and then we'll get to the topic, that Shador going to Cleveland is interesting. And then someone was like, "Well, he played in Colorado, playing like Cleveland." Don't get me wrong. Colorado is cold, right? You're up in the higher, whatever. Playing in Cleveland and playing in Colorado is 2 different things. Cleveland is on that lakefront and everything. And, Shador didn't throw out routes at his pro day for a reason.
And you got to go to Baltimore on the road. And you got to go to Pittsburgh on the road. And just to the Jackson Dart thing, I don't know if you saw, but he was on one of those Barstool, because he's a Barstool guy now.
Yeah.
So he was on the man, who's the guy out in Chicago? I forget what the one is, the better one, and the
Oh, I know
gambling dude.
Brian. I think his name is something Brian something or
I don't know. And he's talking about. He's like, bro. He talked about how the cadence is. He said everyone will tell you that the NFL and the quarterback position is evolving. He's like, no. He's like, the cadence is dissolving, because the guy brought up the Jackson Dart clip. He's like, dude, we cut a lot of it out, but he's like, every quarterback was like that.
Yeah.
Flat. And he's like, what? He's like, I remember 20 years ago, like, no, that was not. What are we doing here?
They showed the guy you liked, Ewing, I think or Henning.
Yeah, Seth Hennigan.
He was doing the same thing. He was clapping.
Yeah, yeah, man.
But yeah,
yo, you know what's cool? If you watch that one, he has a photographic memory.
Yeah,
Hennigan.
I liked it. I liked his mentality. Who do you go to?
Yeah. Jacksonville.
That's a good spot.
Yeah, especially
That's a good spot.
if good old T-Law goes down.
Well, speaking of, we got Zach Wilson, Quinn Ewers. Do you think Zach Wilson is the definite number 2, or do you think Ewers can push him out of 2?
So I don't. First of all, I don't think Ewers is going to be given a fair shot, because we know how this regime works.
Yeah.
They just handed out $6 million in guaranteed money to this guy. Ewers solidified barring injury. That said, I'm going to ask you a question. I asked you. I'm Dolphin fans privately. I asked this Neil on air. I'll ask you on air. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch Ewers, okay? But he thrives in the intermediate, level to down to the short level. Accuracy, that's where you see the best drive and velocity, right? He'll threaten windows and stuff. Who would you trust to run this offense from a structure standpoint?
You've seen what Wilson can do in the NFL. You haven't seen what Ewers can do in the NFL. And
yeah, but
I would trust. The funny thing is, I would trust Ewers more because he is such a raw talent, I guess you can say. Because Wilson has been beaten down, and that when a quarterback gets beaten down, to look at Ryan Tannehill, they start to get the yips and they start to feel pressure that isn't there. Ewers hasn't felt that, so I think McDaniel can really mold him into what can fit this offense perfectly. That's why I was asking you, do you think there's a chance that he becomes number 2? Because I think Ewers might have an opportunity, even though, like you said, they're paying Zach Wilson, $6 million. They're paying him a lot of money. He's going to be your backup.
That's why I don't think he's going to chance. But my answer to that is, my answer to that question is, I trust, from watching the film, I trust Ewers much more to operate this offense and structure. And you can go all the way back to BYU, New York, all of it. All of Zach Wilson's best stuff came out of structure outside the pocket. Is he more talented in terms of athleticism and arm? Yes, 110%. But here's the big red flag for me that no one wants to talk about except me, Doug. And I don't know why no one sees this. Sean Payton. They decided to make Jarrett Stidham, for the second year in a row, the top paid backup quarterback in the NFL, who has less of an arm, much less athleticism. But you know what, bro? He can operate in structure. And what does Sean Payton hate? Why did he hate Russell Wilson? Because Russell Wilson operates best out of structure, and he's not the guy he was 12 years ago, right? And Sean Payton hated that, right? That's why he loved Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Because Brees just operated everything from in structure. And I think he was telling us, bro, Zach Wilson, yeah, I'll let all that upside go, because I don't think he's going to be able to operate my offense efficiently enough from in structure. And I think that's where I think Ewers is going to look better, bro. But I don't think he's going to get a fair shot in year 1 because of the money.
It's funny, too, because we got 2 guys in Ollie Gordon and Ewers going into 2024 had such high potential. Ewers was on the cover of NCAA. Yeah. You had Ollie Gordon, who was on the list for the Heisman going into 2024.
Voting.
And we got them both for 6th and a 7th.
I was looking at mock drafts from September. Ewers was top 5, top 10 in every single one.
And they fell.
Bad year.
How crazy that is.
I think what a lot of scouts believe, bro, is when I had Ryan Roberts on, he said something, and he's one of the best in the business, and he talks to a lot of these people too. I think what the issue is I think these scouts believe the injuries have stacked up and taken juice off of them. And kind of the trajectory isn't nowhere near. Because you know what? Honestly, bro, and I can't believe I forgot this. I forgot he was the flashy kid with the blonde mullet. I forgot that was him coming out of high school. And then I was like, oh, yeah. And because I remember how highly touted he was, right? And then he went to Ohio State for the nil money. And then he went back to Texas, right? So, but bro, dude, listen, all these people that are like March for Arch. Well, guess what? Arch couldn't beat this guy out.
Mm-hmm.
And scouts pretty much agreed that he looked like Shedeur Sanders. He plateaued in 2024. He didn't continue. See, that's why Jackson Dark, Milrow, they, Shuck when he stayed healthy finally. You see the upward trajectory, whereas Shedeur and Ewers kind of went like, flatlined
Kind
a
of
little bit.
plateaued. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna.
Yeah.
But you already know if Ewers does well at all, they're gonna be clamoring because it happens every year. It happens every year during preseason. Oh, we got to start Ewers.
Oh my God.
Skylar Thompson and
Skynet.
all these guys.
Didn't they do Skynet? Didn't they do Skynet for Skylar?
Uh-huh. So now instead of TuaNon, someone wrote TuaNon versus QAnon.
Oh, here we go. I don't know, man. I just, you know what I like? Here's my expectations, bro. Just become a competent number 2 that we can rely on. And if you give me anything more, hot damn diggity, it's a win-win.
Exactly.
That's how I look at it, man. Like if we got someone that can give us more if Tua goes down and can carry us to a playoff win, I don't give a crap. Well, let's go. I've been waiting long enough. If Tua stays healthy, but Ewers comes in and shows whenever he does that he's competent and he can handle the workload, win. I'm good either way, bro. Like, I just go beat Zach Wilson. Let's worry about that first before. It's the same thing with Skylar, right? Everyone saw him in the preseason year 1. Oh, QB1. And it was like, bro, no. Worry about winning the QB2 spot first. And I hope people have learned their lesson with Quinn. Just let's see the natural progression. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
But I like a guy with swag, and he's got some swag, dude.
And me and you at the end of the day, all we care about is winning, right? So if
logo, bro.
God, exactly. God forbid, I'm gonna knock on some wood. Tua does go down, and say Ewers wins the number 2 spot. If he does it, he does it. And all of a sudden, there's a controversy because Ewers is like 6-0, and Tua's coming back. I would be ecstatic about that because at the end of the day, we're winning.
Yeah, and bro, he's thrown to fast guys before. He's thrown to Xavier Worthy, so Tyreek shouldn't be a problem. Now. I don't know if you watched a lot of Golden film this year too, and Isaiah Bond film. I did notice with Arch and Ewers especially, they were having to this was Golden's first year, but there's much more adjustments. Like there was much more turning and adjusting to like underthrown balls. You know what I mean? So I see where the argument comes from scouts with you notice the dip in accuracy in juice once he gets to that deep level compared to what you would see in previous years. You did notice it this year. Now, you got to watch the Gruden's QB camp. You'll really like this part. Gruden says to him, dude, why are you changing your footwork? Because he's been working with a quarterback coach and changing his footwork. I believe it's to lead with the right because he naturally leads with his left. And now he wants to lead with the right. And it's what NFL teams were telling him through the process. Yeah. So he's like, if I remember correctly, I don't remember what he said, but Gruden knew, bro. Gruden knew the camp Ewers went to when he was like 5 years old, because he went to a camp with one of Gruden's friends who's like a QB guru, and he said he taught you the footwork. You've been using that footwork since you're 5. Why are you changing? And he's like, NFL teams are telling me to.
I'll get one last question for you. Yeah. McDaniels doesn't make it. We go 2-6. They move on from McDaniel. Whatever happens to career happens to career. You bring Gruden in?
Anthony Weaver.
I
think Anthony Weaver, when we were 2-4, 2-6 last year, I was saying, hey, if you get rid of this guy this year, give Weaver the shot. And now that we ended up seeing what he did with Chop, bro, I got full faith that Kenneth is going to listen. Okay. I think Tua has grown as much as he will under McDaniel as a player. Yeah. In terms of development. But we got guys on defense we're invested in that I want to see their continued development under Weaver. So if this guy don't work out, and I don't know, what I've heard, bro, is Anthony Weaver's by more players and more people in that building. I've heard Anthony Weaver's more liked right now.
We will see. Maybe, you know, God forbid. I don't want it to happen, but we might see him as the interim head coach.
And then the head coach, because I think he would take us on a run, bro.
Yeah, 100%.
I think guys will run through a wall for him.
100%. But that is episode 5, 373 of you beautiful human beings in here. Be sure to hit that like button on your way out. Reason, what do you got going on? The draft is over. The schedule comes out the 14th. We got rookie mini camps and then OTA at the end of the month. What do you got going on to fill in just nothing?
Yeah, I know. So I'm going to have some more people on just to talk about the draft. I think I got Ryder McConneville coming on next week. And then, yeah, like usually I used to do prospect profiles in this time, but I now last year, and I'll do it again this year. When I do my training camp previews, I'll do that. So yeah, man. You know what I'm expecting to do, and I know you are too. I think it's not going to be as slow as we think. I think going back to what we talked about earlier, I expect something to happen at cornerback and potentially a trade or a signing, you know, at minimum. So
some news, any news is good news. But go over, check out Reason, Finside in the NFL. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Go over, check him out, live stream. He works just as hard as me, but he does it for much longer. He does an hour stream 5 days a week, sometimes 6, sometimes 7. Go over, check him out. Reason, I will see you next week on your channel. So again, if you guys want to see episode 6 of the starting lineup, go subscribe to Reason, and we'll see you next week. Oh, wait, we got a donation before we get out of here. Fiverr says, I hate hypotheticals, but say Tua goes down week 10. We are 5-4, but finish 11-6, win the wild card. Do you want everyone gone? McDaniel, Greer, and Tua. If he goes down week 10 and he's done for the year, and say Ewers or Wilson gets us the rest of the way and wins the playoff game, I'm moving off of Tua. Like that's where I'm at.
I think win or lose, if he goes down and he's out for the rest of the year, they're probably going to move off of him.
It's just we can't keep waiting and hoping and praying for that. You know, we had one full year. We got
2 good quarterback classes coming up. Like, you know, this year's got Aller, Nussmeier, potentially Lenore Sellers. The year after that is when you're probably going to see Arch Manning and those guys come out. You know, there's some good guys coming out over the next couple of years where, bro, you better be on your P's and Q's.
Exactly. You know? Appreciate you, Lewis, for the $2 donation. All right, guys, we will see you next week over on Reason's channel, Finside the NFL. Go subscribe. But like usual, stay classy. And fins up.